Hello, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Life Trials by EAC with your favorite political analyst, Miss Elizabeth. How are you guys? I hope everybody's doing very, very well. Almost couldn't even say that word. Today is Tuesday, August 24th. It is 11:40 a.m. here on the east coast of Florida. I wanted to assess the political debacle happening right now with respects to Afghanistan and answer this question as to why the fall of Afghanistan continues to worsen under President Biden, right? Let me tell y'all, without further ado, in today's episode, we are going to answer that question and bring you why this issue just continues to worsen, right? In Afghanistan, you just sit there and are wondering why things are just collapsing under this presidency. One quote I took away from one of the resources that I used for today's episode: they are now mainstream media considering Joe Biden walk away Joe Biden because he just refuses on a consistent basis now to answer very simple questions. And what is happening is that the backside of Mr. Joe Biden is becoming the defining image of his administration. I thought that those words were very strong because that is exactly what is happening. I feel like I'm living in Cuba or something, where our government feels that they don't have any obligation to answer the American people, which is very scary. And if the tables were turned, oh my God, President Trump answered every single question that every reporter had and even screamed at him disrespectfully. Let's just clear that out, okay? One of the reasons why this continues to worsen under this presidency is because of the smugness and dismissive attitude of President Biden, his administration, regarding his failed past political experience with foreign affairs, okay? They're just mad because they have no answer, because that's what they used during the election, that because he had so much experience that was obviously a pure failure. He's accomplished nothing in all that time being in American politics. They used that to get him into the presidency. And then now there's this sense of smugness and dismissiveness from the administration, the president himself, with respect to answering questions about how all of a sudden it took America 20 years to create some stability within the region. And then this administration takes over, and within like a few days, the Taliban take over the entire fucking country. We need to know this, okay? So the dismissiveness and smugness of an attitude that this president and his administration project on the American people, along with the mainstream media, with such a refusal to address all issues head on, directly, with clear and concise, in a clear and concise manner, is what is going to be his biggest failure of his entire administration, okay? The inability for President Biden to hold a press conference for more than 30 minutes is extremely concerning and is looking more like a dictatorship, with the refusal to address all questions from the media pool, which I think is very frightening. We're starting to get this sense of that our president doesn't answer any questions. Our government has no obligation to answer any questions. And I think that's becoming very frightening. And I really believe now, finally, the mainstream media is starting to pick up on that. And it's just not looking good for him. So imagine such problems ensuing itself under the last administration, as I just previously mentioned. The media would have gone insane, okay, if the tables were turned. But of course, the liberal media mainstream agenda is to save this presidency at the detriment of the American people at any cost, okay? His failed political experience has caused this massive policy failure within that region of the world, okay? He loves to bring up his, experience that has just been pure failure, and nobody interjects and says, no, Joe, you can't really talk about that because it's just been pure failure. No. It's so crazy how his own administration just allows for him to further embarrass himself. But hey, another reason why this continues to worsen is the inconsistency with respects to the policy on resolving the issues of Americans that are stuck in Afghanistan. So the inability for the White House to consistently provide any type of strategy or policy in which gets all Americans out of Afghanistan is falling to pure failure. And with such a sense of smugness that this press secretary has, that she actually insinuated towards a reporter that simply asked her about leaving stranded Americans behind. And instead of her just answering the question, she just becomes so offended. She takes the question so personal, and just ad hominem attack on the guy, who he works for, the news corporation that he specifically works for. Does not address the issue at hand, but attacks the reporter himself, right? It's just too much. And the sense of arrogance to be so dismissive of their own failed policy implementations on foreign policy issues. As I mentioned a few times already, this would have never happened under the last administration. And for this administration right now to consider negotiating with respects to paying the Taliban not to kill Americans, or to not, cause so much chaos in the airport, is just pure coercion, extortion that our own government is involving itself in. I mean, I've never heard of such a powerful government negotiating with fucking terrorists. It's preposterous. And the ability to fulfill, that is another reason why this issue is worsening, is the inability, to fulfill its national security obligations on other matters, domestic and foreign, is what is worsening this issue. Good example, the southwest border. The inability for this president to have the capacity intellectually and mentally to properly run the biggest country on earth and to secure its sovereignty, for that matter, is failing on its face in front of the American people live on television. This administration is doing everything possible to destroy the sovereignty and the superiority of the United States of America on the global stage, and it couldn't be any more obvious than what is happening at the southwest border, in Afghanistan, and most importantly in Afghanistan, where we are seeing right before our eyes the collapse of an entire country that took America 20 years to create some stability for, collapsed within a matter of hours, that Americans died and fought for. I just want to leave this episode on that note. If you enjoyed this specific spiel, please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Live Trials by EAC, and all the platforms that are hosting my podcasts. And please also consider supporting me on my website, 𝑬𝒑𝒊𝒔𝒂𝒏, as any donation is enormously appreciated to keep this podcast up and running. Thank you guys again for tuning in to Live Trials by EAC with yours truly. I love you guys so much, and thank you so much for everything you guys do for me.